let's look at what are data types now. Every program will require certain values as inputs, and these inputs will be stored in the memory for later use. In our Tic Tac Toe game, we have this computer which does some processing, and it takes certain inputs. The name of player 1 is an input, and this input is going to be stored in the memory. The computer is going to do some processing, and the processing is going to result in the storage of the data in the memory in a certain format. Similarly, name of player 2 is also stored in the memory. A different type of inputs are stored in different types of containers. Let's take the example of a car. You see a car, a nice little car is drawn over here, and this car has many inputs. You put the fuel in the car, you put air in the car, and some engine oil also goes into the car. But the containers for the fuel and the oil and the air are all different. The container for fuel is the fuel tank, and the air goes into the wheel, while the engine oil goes into the engine. Similarly, C programming has many types of inputs and data. For example, integer value, that is like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. This goes into an integer type of container, and the character type of container like A, B, C, etc. this holds the characters, and the floating numbers are held in a floating type of container. I am calling this container. Typically these are not called containers in the real sense, but we call them as data types. But these are really different types of containers in which the values go into. So all whole numbers like -1, -2, 0, 200, etc. are stored in something called integer. Numbers with decimals are in float, and characters are in char. This is a typical C statement which says integer I. What this means is that a new type of container is created, and of course this container can store integer values. I is a container. It's like a type of box in which some values can be stored, and this box is going to contain only the integer type of values. Like I is equal to 10. 10 is an integer. This is a valid statement, and this will result in a value 10 getting stored in the I, which is the box that we have created for storing values. In classical terms, I is called a variable. We don't call it a box, we don't call it a container, we call it a variable. So this is how we call it. A variable is actually a box. It is actually a container in which certain types of values can go in depending on how you have defined that particular variable. And this term of course is borrowed from algebra. Nothing very great about it. It simply means that it can have any value. It can have variable number of values. Now let's move on how we can print different types of data. Suppose I is equal to 10, and we use this statement printf I. Remember, in the last video we have used the printf statement, and if we do this, what's going to be printed? I. The value 10 is not going to be printed. In order to print the value 10 or the value of integer values, we have to do something like this: printf %d comma I. So %d is within this quotes, and I is outside the quote. The %d will denote that an integer value has to be printed. Now if you want to print some float values or pointer values, instead of %d we will use some other percentages, And so percentage D is for integer, percentage F is for float, percentage C is for char. All these things need to be remembered. You will find these things in a lot of books, in a lot of and all the textbooks, and I think what you need to do is just memorize them, or if you don't want to memorize them, that keep these definitions handy. Whenever you write a program, you can use them. Okay, so finally we now need to think, or rather try certain things out. Create a variable, assign a value to it, and print it. So create an integer value variable, or create a character value variable. Just play with it and see how it works.